Hey data fans, Reed here. Today I'm going to walk you through a scenario where we're going to take a chart that I built out and turn it into something that's more of a separated variance pairing between essentially the base data and a percentage version of that data for comparative purposes. So things against either target, budget, forecast, plan, something along those lines. So in front of us is essentially the base visual that I have, which is just a combo chart that shows a couple of values with some error bars in it and a percentage to show you how much above or below those error variances are. But as you can see, it's a little bit busy, not very clean, and there's a lot of showing data points. Now, the end result that I'll be having us build is something like this, where we've actually cleaned and separated the lines. We still have these base variances at the bottom, where the grand total here at the top is compared for the actual variance bar there below it, but then above it, we have a separated and stacked line that's onto there. And now this is still done with a single visual, but I want to show you a bit of visual calc magic that I use to create this, color it, and design it. So with that being said, let's hop into Power BI and get started. So to start the conversation, what I have in front of us essentially is a clustered column chart, error bar, and line chart. So I have two values. I have a total value, that's the larger value in the back end, how much of that has been utilized. There's an error bar against the target, and then this percentage is how much is that total varied from the error bar. So in this case, this is 43% above it. This is 71% below it in terms of the ratios. So that's what all this is trying to represent. And it's a little clustered at the moment and busy, so to speak. But at least to mention some of the tricks that I built into here. So the reason that these are overlapping, as you see, is just using that option under the layout where you have space between series where you can overlap the bars. I just like that because whenever you have anything that's eating into another one, that's between 0 to 100%, it's a great way to have one of the columns essentially be outlined with just a border on. And in this case, that will be the total. There we go. So transparency is 100. I just have the border turned on there to show the bar. I like using those as a combo together. So it's getting closer. It's kind of what I would like to aim towards. And I do even have those error bars turned on for the total, where that's just showing how far it is away from the targeted value that I have, which in this case is just the value target that is coming from the model in the demo data set. But I know we can make this a little bit better, and I've always loved the IBCS standardizations where they show error bars like this, but something that's closer to what we see in front of us here. So all these values are already still there at the bottom, but now what we've done is separated this, anchored it to a zero line, and then showing those how much it is above or below a zero line axis with that. So let's go ahead and take this and modify this to essentially present that. So I'm going to come into this here. And to start with, I'm going to go ahead to the line axis, and actually I'm going to add in here a zero line. So I'm going to do the f of x button in here. There we are. And this would be our variance line base. And it's going to be a zero line that's going to be flat all the way across it. So variance line base, there we go. And that's just going to equal 0 on this. Okay, let's go ahead and set that into there. That is going to be our anchor. So for now, what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to hide the other one. We have this base anchor in here. Let's do a couple things to start with. So one, I'm just going to go ahead and turn off the data label for that. Now, the thing that I need this to do is I need it. I'm going to change the color here a bit. Let's maybe make it like a little bit of a darker black. So I need this to sit on top of everything. I would like to give like a 1/3, 2/3 ratio. 2/3 to the chart, 1/3 to the line chart at the top, because they're going to be actually sharing the same y-axis. So I'm going to turn this off, and I need both, one for the line to move up, the other to move down. So I've actually created some measures for this. So the primary y-axis max, what I've done is I've actually grabbed the max value between either the total or the value target, and I times that by 1.7 to give it a bit of a buffer space above it. So the y-axis max will be about 170% above where that is. So that's going to go into my y-axis. I'm going to do the maximum. I'm going to set that in here for metrics. Go to NISC, set that to y-axis max, and click OK. Now, there we go. You see that these columns are now being pushed down, because that, as I mentioned, is just basically grabbing the value from there. Now, I have two others. I also have my y-axis min. So that grabs that y-axis max value. It also gets the min-max range of that variance line. So how much am I going up or down on that to know the range of my percentages? And then I put a little bit of a buffer as well to like push that down, but that scales it essentially to the same axis as my primary Y one and the billions and all of these, because I have my secondary axis turned off to make this look a bit cleaner. So let's just go ahead and set that to start with. So I'm going to go to my Y axis in here, the secondary. I'm going to set that min to that other one under metrics, misc, Y axis min, click OK. And now there we are. We have that into there, but now we have the minimum. We also need the maximum, and that is just going to be the max value for whatever that percentage is. So same thing, I'm going to go to maximum, bring that into here, and we're going to go to metrics and put that into the max. There we are. It's going to pop right there, and eventually we're going to get these error variances built into this. Now, a couple of things that I want to do into here is I could just put the value into there like this, where I just get one color. But as you've seen, if I go to the base, I can turn that on. I can put my value target in here. We're not going to be able to do color formatting for both colors. So essentially, we want to do two colors for this. So we're going to do a little bit of visual calculation magic to do this. I'm going to get rid of that, turn that off. I'm going to come back to my Y-axis. I'm going to select add data. And this is going to be variance line positive equals, so if my variance line percentage is greater than or equal to 0, I would like it to return the base, basically the 0 dot. Otherwise, return blank. And we're going to repeat this pattern again for the other one, but see how I'm only getting a 0 dot at the spots that I would like it to. And we'll clean this up a little bit. So we're going to try that again. Of x, I'm going to change this to a minus, put that to less than 0, same thing. Done. Now, let's do a bit of cleanup and house cleanup. I'm going to come to data labels. I'm going to turn that off for my plus and for my minus to get those off of the line there. Okay, but now a few other things that we're going to do. We're going to come to the lines here. Sorry, we're going to come to the error bars, and I'm going to go to the plus, and I'm going to drag this into there for my error bar. And now with that on, I'm only getting the error bars for when it is above. Now I can do something where let's take a bar. I'm going to maybe make that like a width of 2, color that green. Let's make the marker a little bit bigger and a circle. There we go. So starting to add in as we'd like to get. Okay, that's 1. Now come to the variance line minus. And we are again going to drag this in, turn that on. There we are. And now let's make the bar red, a little bit bigger, and a marker change for that color. Now to top it all off, we're going to go to the lines. We're going to go to the plus, turn it off. We're going to go to the minus, turn it off. So even with the line off, notice that the variance is still showing. So I have a single solid line now below it. Now here's the tricky part. So the thing that I got stuck on for a little bit is if I come down to, say, the error labels and I turn them on, it's not in percentages as I would like to see, and there's no formatting options for that. But what we can do is we can actually turn back on this line, which is where the original location is, that we're using everything for an anchor, but we can keep the labels while going to this one and turning off the line. So the labels for this still show, the line doesn't, but that's giving us that perfect little design that we have built into here. And closing back out of this, we get something that's essentially going to produce the exact result that we're wanting to see, with the negatives and the red as the line for that. And again, that separation where they're nearly identical to each other. And if you're wanting this to move at all, or maybe let's assume that this is a little bit too close, you can always adjust these ever so slightly. Maybe make that a 0.65. And it scoots it up just a bit more. And I found that this is refreshable. So generally speaking, when I go to this, I have some randomization in the numbers to check it. It's always coming up where the spacing is being kept appropriate with those, where they're barely touching, but not actually quite overlapping with that. But overall, as you can see, this looks a lot cleaner than what you would have normally had if you had had them overlapping each other. So I think this is a great way to show those integrated variances without too much fuss. And the final thing that I'll mention is this legend doesn't look particularly good. So what I did actually do is I had grouped by, and I actually added a second custom designed legend. I'm basically using a tree map because those can actually collapse and you can squish them down. I grouped the two visuals together. I come and unlock this here. You can actually see that there's a tree map that's in there, but one secondary visual that I use to anchor on top to have a bit of a cleaner display of those, since there are a few calculation groups and everything. Sorry, better said, there's a few visual calcs that are going into the visual. So that's the final icing on the cake, is just the fact that there is a grouped object between that and the chart legend for those. But overall, I think it looks pretty good. Hopefully this is something you can find useful. As always, grab the file from our website to download here at analyticendeavors.com. Check out some of our related content here in the upper left. Drop any notes or comments, suggestions for future videos down below. And as always, liking, commenting, and subscribing will help our channel grow. So see you all in our next video.